Welcome back to Explain America. This is your host, Kyle Becker. The long-awaited release of the Epstein files is forthcoming. There is going to be a congressional report on these files, and the House Oversight Committee chairman is already sounding the alarms about the fallout of this report. But before we get into the story, please like, share, and comment at Explain America. Join us. We appreciate your support for common sense journalism. Well, House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, a congressman from Kentucky, is already warning that this Epstein report is not going to make people happy, and that's because he believes it could wind up in the eyes of the American public as a report not much different than that of the Warren Commission that gave us a one-sided narrative about the JFK assassination. And there are still a lot of critics about that decades later, and Comer believes that this Epstein report could be viewed by the public in much the same way. Now, Comer has spent months digging through Epstein's records, including financial records, letters, emails, and personal materials. So far, the investigation has turned over about 65,000 pages of Epstein-related documents, and it hasn't given us a lot of insight into the blackmail ring that Epstein was running and the Johns that were connected to all of these victims. And it's very suspicious indeed, because thousands of victims were being trafficked for Epstein while he was cozying up to some of the most powerful leaders in the world, including Prince Andrew of the royal family. So many Americans don't think it's a coincidence, nor the intelligence ties that Ghislaine Maxwell had through her father specifically. So Comer expects the filings in this upcoming report to be viewed with a lot of suspicion. He doesn't believe that Congress can win in this situation, that they're in a lose-lose situation. And Congress has recently, as you know, passed legislation to force the release of these documents within 30 days, and President Donald Trump has signed it into law. Now, this is what Comer said, and I quote, "I fear the report will be like the Warren report. Nobody will ever believe it," unquote. Now, the Warren report, as you know, was issued by the Warren Commission, and there are a lot of concerns by historians that they left out extremely concerning information. It pointed to Lee Harvey Oswald being a lone gunman, and it sort of glided over his ties to intelligence, the mob, his foreign activities. And in early 2025, President Trump ordered the release of thousands of classified documents related to the 1963 assassination of John F. Kennedy. And the files included memos, interviews, transcripts, and intelligence reports, such as the 1964 Warren Commission interview with a CIA employee in a 1975 CIA memo identifying former Mexican President Luis Echeverria Alvarez as the agency's security contact on Lee Harvey Oswald in Mexico. So while this release was significant, many experts noted that many of the documents were already released, and the new materials did not reveal major evidence of a conspiracy. But historians, however, welcome the additional insights into Cold War-era intelligence operations and U.S. surveillance activities during Kennedy's presidency. But despite Trump's promise of a complete release, one expert noted that about 2/3 of the anticipated 3,500 unreleased documents were not included in the March 2025 disclosure. So will this Epstein report go much the same way as the Warren report and the subsequent JFK files release? We'll have to stay tuned for that. But if James Comer's words are any warning, well, we might be extremely disappointed in the efforts at transparency and, more importantly, accountability. But weigh in with your thoughts. We always appreciate you watching at Explain America.